Teaching is going through a major change. With online learning, personalized learning, and hybrid learning becoming a bigger part of our lives, we're going to have to adapt. And as we're trying to adapt, sometimes trying to figure out how to make those changes can be overwhelming. If you're watching this video, you're looking for a tech tool that can make your teaching more effective or simplify your teaching life. So before we get going, I'm going to tell you about a workshop that I went to. It was really similar to this one last year, except for it was in person, so it was a little bit different. So I sat in not too close to the front in this session, not too far in the back, kind of in the middle-ish. And I was sitting there with my notebook open, listening to the person talk up in the front. And they were talking about a tech tool that they use in their classroom. And when I was sitting there listening to them, I was just thinking to myself, oh man, this is like the most creative way of using this. Like kids got to love this. And so I'd write down the tech tool, and I write down the way that they used it, and I write down the little tips and tricks they give for us, like definitely don't do that. I did that, like don't do that, or like make sure you show them this part. The kids are really going to like this, and it's really going to be good for them. And then I'd write down, different ways that I could use it in my classroom. And then at the bottom, when the session got over, I'd sit there for just a little bit longer, and I'd write down in the bottom right-hand corner a to-do list. And I'd write myself 3 little bullet points of things to do. Like I was going to research this, or I was going to try this at the start of class, or maybe, if I could think of a certain lab that I was going to use it in, I would write that down. And then I'd go to the next session, flip the page, do the same thing. Don't sit too close to the front. Don't sit too far in the back. Sit kind of in the middle-ish. Listen to somebody else talk. And again, it'd be the same thing where I'm just amazed at the way that they're using technology in their classroom. And so I'd write down the tech tool, same thing. Write down the way that they use it, the way that the little tips and tricks, the way that I thought I could use it. Then I'd write my little to-do. Give myself 3 bullet points. Go on to the next session. And then you know how this goes. If you stay for the whole workshop, you got 6, 7, maybe 8 sessions, and you have 6, 7, maybe 8 pages of notebook paper. And if you write yourself 3 to-dos, you've got, maybe 24 to-dos that you wrote yourself at the end. And so I'd go home at the end of the night, and I'd sit in my, house, and I'd flip the pages, and I'd look through all the to-dos that I gave myself to do, and or maybe the next day at school, and you're looking through them, and I'm thinking, how am I actually going to do this? Like I'm thinking of the first tool that I saw, and how could I bring that in my room? And then I think of the third one. I was like, oh man, that was so awesome. And then I could bring it in, and use it. And eventually I'd get so overwhelmed with the things that I was trying to do that I wouldn't end up really sticking with any of them or even using any of them, because I just get overwhelmed. And if you're watching this video, you're probably in a situation where you don't have the choice to be overwhelmed with technology anymore and just not use it. Right? You're going to have to use technology. It's just a fact now. Whether we're going to hybrid, personalized, or online, it's going to be a part of your teaching. And so as you're thinking about these tech tools, whether it's in this workshop or in a different workshop, I want you to be thinking about these 2 questions as you're evaluating these tech tools. How does this make my teaching more effective? Right? How does this make the way that I do things currently more effective in an online format? Or how does it make it still effective in an online format? Right? Or how does this take this little thing that I do in class and really shoot it through the roof as far as student achievement or the way that they learn? Or how does this make my students able to connect with each other better or build better relationships? Or how does this tool help me to personalize my learning for my students and meet them really where they're at? How does this tool make my teaching more effective? And then the second question you've got to ask yourself is what problem does this solve? Because we've all got situations in class that just eat at our heads. Right? So how does this tech tool solve that problem for me and make it a non-factor? Right? What little situation am I complaining about over and over and over, and I just can't figure it out that this tech tool will just get rid of? Right? So if you can ask yourself those 2 questions, number 1, how does this make my teaching more effective? And number 2, what problem does this solve? And if you can answer one of those questions very confidently, then the tech tool is going to be something that you need to try out in your classroom. And so as you're evaluating tools within this workshop, I think there's one question that you really need to be thinking about to yourself is, what do you need? Right? Are you a teacher who you're going to put all of your content online so that when students come into your classroom, they can engage in these projects and deep discussions and really understand this content? Right? Or maybe you put your videos online last year onto YouTube, and at the end of the year, you went back onto YouTube and checked your views on these videos, and you realized there was less views on your videos than there is in like half of your class. And so what you need is instructional videos, but you also need accountability, because you need to help students to understand this information through their videos and make sure that they're watching it and understanding the content. Or maybe, just like any of us teachers, you want your students to develop grit and perseverance and the ability to learn from their mistakes, right? To really go back and fix things. Right? But you spend hours during the Vikings game even writing this detailed feedback on lab reports, And you realize that when you handed these lab reports back and you're really expecting these students to go back and fix their mistakes and return them in, to develop that perseverance and grit and mistake fixing, right? That the papers made their way into the garbage on the way out the room. Right? And so what you really need is you need a better peer review. You need a better process for students to think about how they're going to fix their mistakes. Right? Or maybe you want students to really engage in this deep discussions on content. Right? And you want them to be able to connect with each other. Maybe you just want them to be able to see each other's faces throughout the year over a video discussion and just introduce themselves or say something fun about themselves at the start of every class. Right? You want them to be able to plan out their responses so that they can think about what they're going to say before they say it in a discussion, so they can become more confident talking in front of their peers. And so what you need is anytime, anywhere video discussions. Or maybe you have one student who in your discussions in class is just so good at discussions. It's like they dominate the discussion and nobody else can talk, and you just want to be able to show them what's going on. Or maybe you want to be able to kind of scaffold your students' responses to each other, and you want them to be able to build in a way of talking to each other in a discussion so that they can engage in this content in a really, really deep way, and they can dive into this issue that they're trying to discuss. And so you need better discussions so you can teach them how to discuss things, because that's how we learn as adults. We talk things out. Right? Or maybe you're a veteran teacher. Right? You have existing slides that are proven, they're effective, your stuff is good, but you want to make sure that you're engaging every student. Right? You're standing up in the front and you're giving your lecture and you think kids are getting it, but Billy in the back row looks like he's falling asleep and he won't answer any of your questions. And so you just want to make sure that everybody's getting the material and they're understanding it before you move on to the next thing. Right? Or maybe you want to self-pace your lessons so that students can work through it on their own pace when they're ready. And so what you want is formative assessment in existing slides. But we as teachers run into each of these situations over and over. I can't think of how many times I've thought to myself, I want better peer review. I want them to go back and fix their mistakes and really think about how they could be better. Or maybe you just want them to be able to discuss things better. Like I said, you want them to develop that skill of being able to talk things out and really dive into a subject. And so what you should be thinking about is, what do you need in your classroom? Right? Do you need a tech tool like Edpuzzle? Do you need Eduflow to do better peer review? Do you want to use Flipgrid and learn how to do that? Parlay, are you going to use that to have better discussions? Or are you going to ramp up your existing slides with Pear Deck? What you should be doing in this video, I really think it'd be a waste of your time to watch the entire video. I'm going to put in what time each of these tech tools is going to get talked about in the video. And if there was one that you really connected with, if I said one of those situations and I described something to you and you got like goosebumps running up your arm because that's where you have to get better, right? Then you should flip over to that tech tool and you should watch that one. I'm going to give a quick demo and an introduction to it. I'm going to show you kind of the basics for how to get started with it and what it does and just kind of the general idea of it. And then you're going to go into my resources slide. I have a resources document. I put more in-depth videos with really strong how-tos, how to use this. Either I pulled it from a YouTube video that was already there or I made one myself. And I think you should spend a half an hour learning how to use that one tool. Right? And if you get done with that and you think this is something that I could use in my classroom, or like this is really going to help me, then you should commit right then to using it in your first unit. And you should think about what projects, what assignments, what situations am I going to use this in my first unit of the year? And you should try it out. And if it works, great, you'll stick to it and you'll become more effective. And if it doesn't work, then you should go back and you should try to find something that does. Right? Because the situations that I described are never going to go away. Right? We're going to have to adapt, but that doesn't mean we have to throw out everything we've ever done. We've just got to find really specific ways to get better at what we're doing, whether it's in person, online, or hybrid. Right? Be really intentional about the way that we're improving in our classroom. Because the goal for all of us is really just to get better. Whether we're teaching in person or teaching online or teaching hybrid, we're just trying to get better at whatever we're doing. So the first tech tool that I'm going to show you is Edpuzzle. And so like I said before, what Edpuzzle gives you is it gives you the ability to have content when needed, and it can also be interactive and accountable. Right? It's going to make those videos better. And so when you're trying out Edpuzzle, you go to edpuzzle.com, go to log in as a teacher, sign in with Google. I'm going to go to Justin Viss, log in with your Google account. So when you get to here, you can see on the left-hand side, I can have my home page, have curriculum, whether it's Edpuzzle's curriculum. I can see Minnewaska's curriculum, my school's curriculum, all the videos that other teachers have made. from Minnewaska, and I can see my content. Now on my content, you can have 20 videos on the free version of Edpuzzle. They do offer that. If you wanted to upgrade to have unlimited video storage, you could upgrade for $11.50 per month. Or you can also get, if you're looking at a whole school, you can get pro school access for everybody. On the left-hand side here, you can see popular channels are Edpuzzle, where they have already made videos for Edpuzzle with questions and notes and things in them. You can see YouTube. You can have Khan Academy. If you're someone who uses a lot of Khan Academy videos, you can ramp up those videos and assign them. And really any of these popular YouTube channels are on here. So the way that I would do this is I have a lot of my videos on YouTube from last year. And so I would look up my videos, types of chemical reactions, copper carbonate. And so this is one that I did in class where we would normally do a types of chemical reactions lab, but since we weren't in person, I did the lab, had another science teacher film me, and then I assigned it for my students. And so once I'm at this video, I can watch through it. I can either assign it right from here and so that it'll tell me how much of the video they watched, or I can go to edit. And this is where the videos become much more effective. And so I can cut the video, take parts out of the beginning and the end that I don't like. I can do a voiceover, which is going to let me add in a recording of my voice at certain points in the video where it will stop the video and they'll listen to me talk about if I have to, maybe explain something or give some clarification or say, hey, make sure you're watching this part. I can do that. And the part that I like the most is the questions. And so I can put in multiple choice questions, open-ended questions, and I can put in notes within the video so that it will stop the video at certain points and they'll answer a question or look at a note that I have in here. So for this assignment, I had them taking word equations, which is this right here, and transferring it into a chemical equation. And then they were observing a chemical reaction. They were defining what type of chemical reaction is this for the assignment. So with this right here, I really wanted to make sure that they knew this is the word equation that you're supposed to be using in your assignment. So I can add that note in here. So that when they get to that point in the video, it's going to stop them, show them that note, they click continue, and then they move on so that they get that information. So once I do that, the video is going to play just like normal. As a teacher, I can skip through here. We don't have to watch my whole video, so we're going to go on a little bit. When we get to this point, right before the chemical reaction starts to happen, I want to do a little review with them. Because the day before we would have talked about what are the signs of chemical reactions. And so I can put in like a pre-question here. I'm going to change this. Which of these changes is not a sign of a chemical reaction? So then I can put in, I've got my green check mark here, which means this is the right answer. Boiling is not a sign of a chemical reaction. So I'm going to put that in there. I can give them a couple other options to choose from. Go color change, add another one. I can go to new substance formed, and I can also add in, let's go with energy released. So they'll see a multiple choice question. This is the right answer because of the green check mark. And I can give them feedback. If they chose color change, I can say nope and have that entered in there. So then I save. And now when they get to that point in the video, they will get that question and they'll answer that question. Just kind of activating that prior knowledge from the day before. Then I can play through the video. They're going to watch this whole chemical reaction happen. The point that I want them to get to is right here. So I made an observation for them because obviously they can't see it. Normally they do this in class themselves. But I said it's a little bit cloudy in the lime water. And so what I want to know is, I want them to make a conclusion, right? To make a hypothesis on whether or not a chemical reaction happened in the lime water. So they're just going to get a yes or no question. Because it changed colors and a new substance was formed. I'd say yes, that a chemical reaction happened in the lime water. So they're going to answer yes or no on that, so I can see what they're thinking. But then that doesn't really tell me a whole lot of information. And so right after that question, I'm going to give them an open-ended question. Right? So I'm going to ask them to explain their thinking on that. So that not only will I get yes or no, do you think a chemical reaction happened, but I'm also going to get some of their thinking. So in this video, it's kind of a standard format that I like to use is have some notes talking about the assignment that they're doing, do a little bit of a pre-question, get their ideas before they start watching the new content, and then get them to do a conclusion and have them explain their thinking in something like this. I've seen this before in like a math class, or even I'll use it when I'm working through equations in physical science, is have a problem set up, have a multiple choice question where they're seeing, they're going to do the problem and then answer the question, and then they'll watch my solution for the problem. And so that can be a really good way for them to take a stance on it, and really engage with it before they get the answer to the question instead of just watching the YouTube video. So I clicked finish up here when I'm done with the video. Now what I can do is assign this to any of my classes. You can pull in classes from Google Classroom, have a start date, a due date, and one important thing is to click prevent skipping. This will automatically be on. It's what Edpuzzle does. And then I can assign that to my class. And just to show you what that looks like from the student's perspective, I'll log out, go to a different account that I have logged into that class on Edpuzzle. And then I have a new assignment here. And so I can go through, watch this video, and I'm going to get that note that popped up for me. It's going to stop me right there. And this is the word equation for your assignment. I click continue and the video keeps going. And so I told you before that this isn't just improving your videos because now you have notes, you have questions, you have conclusions that they're drawing from these videos, and you get to see their answers for all of that, but it's also going to add accountability for you. Right? So not only does it ask the questions, but also watch what's happening in the video right here. It's at about 9-10 seconds. If I change the tab and open up a new tab, and I'm going to go start surfing the web or something like that, now all of a sudden the video didn't change. I go back to my new tab and the video stops. So when you change tabs, the video stops. You have to watch the entire video. You can't close out of it, do anything like that. You know that when it says that they've watched the video, you know that they've watched the video. And so that's going to give you some added accountability in your videos. And the other piece of that is when I log out, go back to my teacher version of this, it's also going to let me grade and see how they did on the video. So I'll go to my classes, I'll go to due assignments, there's no due date. I'll go to this one because this is the one that I filled out earlier. So I can see that I have one answer to grade. I can see that out of my 2 students that are in the class, one of them watched the entire video. I can tell when they watched it. I can tell when they turned it in. I can go to their assignment and I can see how they did on these questions. So I see that they got this question right. They got that question right. They have one open-ended question that's left to grade. And so I can check per student, how did they do? I can also go to the assignment and go to the overall question and see, okay, on this question, what percentage of my students got this right? What percentage of my students got this wrong? Where are some misconceptions there might be in the class? And I can adjust off of that. So it's really going to help me to be more accountable and to have better content in my videos, not only to have those questions ramping up the videos, but it's also going to allow the content to be accessed whenever, wherever. We'll also maintain that content, the accountability piece. So that is Edpuzzle. So the next tool that we're going to talk about is Eduflow. And this is one where if you've used PureGrade before, PureGrade is transitioning their free version over to Eduflow. So if you're comfortable with PureGrade, you can still use PureGrade, but the free version of their software and their process is going to Eduflow. Okay, Eduflow allows you to have 3 classrooms with 50 students in each classroom. So the way that I would use it is I'd take my physical science sections where I have 4 sections of roughly maybe 25 people in each one. So I've got 100 kids. I would split 2 of the sections up in one of my Eduflow classrooms, and I'd put 2 of the sections in the other Eduflow classroom where they're all interacting in the same classroom. And then I'd use the other class for my elective class, right? So I'd take 3 classes in Eduflow and I'd make it work across all of my sections. But that's the free version. And so what Eduflow is going to give you is it's going to give you the opportunity to have rigorous peer feedback where students are turning in their work, they're grading each other's work off of the rubric that you upload into the system. When they submit their work, they're going to be able to start reviewing other people's work, and as soon as they review everyone's work, they're going to get the feedback that others gave them, and then they can make changes based off of that, their revisions, and then they can submit a final submission after that. So it's going to give you that ability, but it's also going to allow the students to move at their own pace. Right? So it really becomes a powerful tool, whether you're in-person learning, in distance learning, in hybrid learning, whatever your situation is, because you can be very flexible in the timetables that you have with it. So when you go to eduflow.com, I can log in here. I go to log in with Google, and you get to your courses page. So I can see my courses here. I have the demo Eduflow, and I also have a physical science class. So I can click into Eduflow, and what I can do is make activities and flows for my class. So an activity is just a one-off thing that they're going to do, whether they're submitting something, watching a video, or they're displaying some content. Maybe they're reading through some text, or they're having a discussion or a Zoom meeting. Whatever it is they're doing once, you can add those activities, and you can build your flows based off of that. Right? A flow is just a progression of activities that they're going to move through, kind of similar to like what you would do in a class anyways. Maybe they're going to hand in their work, and then they're going to be looking through other people's work. Same idea. Or you can use a pre-made flow, which is a progression of activities. This is where, if you've used PeerGrade before, this is their process. You have your submission, peer review, where students are going to look through each other's work, and then you're going to do a self-review where students are going to review their submission, and then they're going to give some thoughts on the feedback that they got, and they're going to react to that feedback. So I can add this flow into my class for maybe I'm doing a lab report. So I'm going to go 1, and so that's what I'm going to name it. Right? The first activity is the students are going to submit their work. And so what I can do is I can add in like an activity sheet for this. If I have like a lab handout that I would normally do, I could look up lab report 1. Maybe I could add that in there. Whatever you would normally hand out, you can put it into this online so they can access it. I can decide whether they can change it or not. I can change my deadlines. Maybe I want all the students to turn this in by August 5th. Maybe it opens on August 5th and I'd have a deadline of August 12th. So I can do that. That's going to give me the flexibility of, hey, this opens up this time, but you have to have it done by this time. And so I can do that with my submissions. The other part of this is once they get to reviewing work done by their peers, I can upload a rubric into this. So I can edit my review work done by peers. I can upload my normal rubric that I would do anyways. Lab report 1, let's go lab report 1 rubric, it's right here. And so they can see the rubric that I would normally hand out. So you don't have to change any of your stuff, you can just upload it in the program. And then the other cool thing that I can do with this is with my feedback on my rubric, it has an automatically 2 questions they would automatically get. One, when you're reviewing, mention something that your classmate did well, and then mention something that your classmate could improve at. But I can also add in here that when students are reviewing each other, they are going to review based off of my rubric. So my criteria, let's say in science, I was doing lab reports, so I'm going to have a claim right here. And then I can put in my indicators for my rubric in this scale part here. So the report did not have a claim. I could have all of these in here, so that they don't have to know what a meets expectation or an above expectations is. They can just see the indicator for it, and that they're actually going to be picking one of these choices while they're reviewing other people's work. And so I'll save that one in there as my scale. And then, so when students are reviewing each other's work, they're going to get these 3 questions that they can answer. And you could change these, you can get rid of these ones, and you can add all of the indicators in for your rubric. But it's really going to let them, number 1, get a chance to see what your rubric actually looks like, so that they're actually understanding what they're being graded off of. And number 2, they get to see a lot of different examples of like evaluating other people's work based off of your rubric, so they can see what really good is and what maybe not so good is, and then they can use that information for theirs, right? That process of really evaluating the quality of work. I can make some other changes with this. I can have this open up at some deadline. So maybe I say this opens when you submit your work, right? And then maybe there's a deadline. Maybe you have to have your feedback done in 2 days, right? If we're in an asynchronous period. So that's the flexibility that's going to give you while still keeping them accountable to your rubric working on the skills that you want them to be working on. Then what they're going to do is they're going to go through and they're going to review their work, right, looking through their own submission after they've evaluated other people's, and they're going to evaluate their own rubric, their own work, and then they're going to reflect on the feedback that they got. As soon as they review their work, they're going to get all of the feedback that other people have given to them. And so one thing that I really like to do at this point is I can add in a final submission. So maybe, just like you would with peer feedback in a classroom, you want them to turn in their rough draft, review their work done by peers, review their own work, reflect on the feedback, and then maybe they're going to revise it and they're going to put in their final submission. Right, so then you're getting that whole process through, but it's streamlined and there's no papers moving all over the place. Whether you're, maybe you're not at school and so you can't do that sort of thing. And Eduflow is going to take care of all of the legwork on this. I can see a summary of where my students are at in the process. I can see my individual participants, and I can add people into the class right here. But it really is a great tool to guide students through that review, that peer review process, because not only do they learn more about their own submission from looking at other people's, but they also get, you're going to get better submissions out of your class because they're going to have reviewed other people's, and they're going to see what good is, what not so good is, and then they're going to go back into their process, their own work, and they're going to revise it. And so that's going to give you the option to have the rigorous peer feedback and also have the flexibility of moving at your own pace with Eduflow. So if you said that you wanted anywhere, anytime discussions on video, then Flipgrid is the tool that you should be using, because it's going to give you the option to have the ability for your students to plan out their responses, look at the topic, look at the discussion prompt, write out what they're going to say, and then they can record their video, and then they can review their video to make sure they like it and they feel good about it before they post it to a discussion board. And it's also going to give them the ability to connect with peers, whether they're seeing each other's faces over video or just hearing each other's voices over the videos. It really is going to help you to build a sense of community in your classroom, whether they can be in person or whether they can't be in person, and really give them the flexibility to have video discussions. So I had to turn my video off because I'm going to show you how to use Flipgrid here. So you go to flipgrid.com. It's going to take you to the same site, info.flipgrid.com. You're going to go to educator login, and you can log in with Google. This is a completely free tool for you to use. So when you get to flipgrid.com, the first thing to do is to create a group, because this is going to allow you to organize your topics based off of your classes. So let's say I go with physical science right here. The join code is here. I'm going to choose that I want my students to be able to join using their email, which is going to say that they have to have, for us it'd be isd2149.org email in order to join the class. Right? You can do passwords for guests. That works too. So once I create the group, I have the code here. I could also share this to Google Classroom or to Remind or wherever I want to put it. So I'm going to go to the group. I can add co-teachers, which is actually really nice if you have paraprofessionals in the room that you also want to be able to look at the discussion board and help out students. So I can see my students here. I am the only one in the class right now. I can also see my topics. And so to start a topic, maybe this is the first discussion of the year. And so we're going to just go with introduction, and you are going to introduce yourself and share one interesting fact. Sure, let's go with that. So you're going to you can change your recording time, whether you want them to have short amount of time, short videos, or you wanted to have them be able to do it for 10 minutes. This would work for whether it's an introduction like this, or maybe you want them to present some work at the end of a unit for a project. That would work as well. You could have moderation, which depending on your class or depending how comfortable you are with them, you could have that set up so that new videos would have to be activated by you before they entered the discussion board, because it is an open discussion board. Everybody can see each other's videos. So once I get here, there's one other option that I want to show you, and that is down at the bottom. You can give regular feedback with the ones that they have in there with ideas and performance, or you could add in your own custom feedback. So if you watch the Eduflow video that I did right before this, you could see that I would grade things based off of a claim. So if you had a rubric where you're maybe looking for certain skills in discussion, like being able to support yourself with evidence or being able to show clear reasoning that I would use in science, or maybe you have something else that you would use, you could add that criteria to here, right? So I could go claim, clear, concise claim, and then I could give a minimum score and a maximum score, grading off of that. I'm not going to use that for this one. We're just going to use the basic. But another option for you to do if you wanted to give some more assessment to this. And then I create my topic. So now I have the code to that topic, which is right here. I can copy it. I can share it to Google Classroom. I can embed it wherever, QR code, whatever you need to do. And so then now I'm in the topic page here. This is where students are going to be able to make videos that are going to add to the discussion. So if they were going to make a video, they would go to record a response. They'd come up to this page, and this is where we're going to record. So maybe my video is going to be, hi everybody, my name is Justin Viss. Interesting fact about me is that I went to school in Wisconsin for 4 years. And then I stop right there. So just pause the video. I can add different effects. Got some options for it. And then I'm going to go to next. So this is where we're going to review it. So this is where students really have the option to review what they made and decide if they want to use it or not. This is actually a really big tool for students because they get a little bit nervous about recording videos, and so they want to go through it a couple of different times to make sure they have one that they feel comfortable uploading for their peers. And so once they're comfortable with it, they go to next, and they could add a picture if they wanted to, like add that to their video. So that's going to pop up as soon as someone clicks on the video, and then they would submit, and then that would be posted to the online discussion board. So students would see the video, and then they could click on it. And then, then students could comment on it and respond to it. For the teacher, I could give feedback based on my criteria that I had, whether it's ideas or performance, and I could send out private comments if I wanted to tell them something that I didn't want to be public on the discussion board. Then I could do that private comments as well, and I could email it to them. So that is the gist of Flipgrid. It really is a pretty simple tool, and it really can do a lot of important things, whether it's keeping kids connected to each other, allowing them to have some discussions and really plan out their responses, and getting them more comfortable with having discussions with their peers. So it's going to give you that planned responses, plus give them the ability to connect with peers, which we know is so important right now, whether they're in person with each other or whether they're learning from a distance. So the next tool that we're going to talk about is called Parlay, and this is the one I described at the beginning as just flat out giving you better discussion. So this one is going to combine being able to improve your discussions with asynchronous flexibility, that aspect of being able to answer these discussions and respond to others at any time throughout the whole discussion. So it's going to improve your discussions in a lot of different ways, and I'm going to show you those. It's best just to show you. So I'm going to go to parllayideas.com, and I'm going to log in using Google. And when I get to this home page here, you can see my courses right here. So I have a Parlay introduction course that we're going to use. One of the important parts here, one of the cool features of Parlay is that it has a bunch of different discussion prompts that you can already use and that you can import and make these work for your class. Whether it's in English literature or history or controversies, there's just a lot of really cool ideas, and you can upload to these. And when you make a discussion prompt, you can put it out into the Parlay universe. So I'm going to be looking at this one here, exploring the UN Sustainable Development Goals. You can either create a roundtable if you have unlimited amounts of them. I already have a roundtable built, so I'm going to take this discussion prompt, and I'm actually going to copy and paste it in there. It's a good one. It talks about learning goals, so discussing the UN Sustainable Development Goals. The students in this one are going to determine one of the Sustainable Development Goals that they feel is the most interesting or important, and they're going to identify or explain one of the major roadblocks, and then decide what they can do as individuals to achieve this goal. So I'm going to copy this one. I'm going to go to the back here, and I'm going to go to the roundtable that I already have ready to go here. So I could create a new roundtable if I wanted to. A roundtable is basically just a discussion where everyone in the class is able to respond to it. It's as if we were all sitting around a giant roundtable talking about this idea, but this is going to be in an online format. And so I already have a discussion prompt up and ready to go here. I haven't entered anything into it. So I'm going to take this discussion prompt that I copied and I'm going to paste it in here. And the cool thing about Parlay is that you can set up all of your introduction and your instructions in here, as well as your content. So I can link in a YouTube video, a TED Talk on the Sustainable Development Goals. I can also link in websites, and so I can send them to the United Nations. That I can link in pictures, and I have my discussion questions in here that they'll be able to see while they're responding to the prompt. And I also have some guidelines for the peer feedback that they're going to be able to see. So part of the peer feedback is that they are going to be able to describe how, if at all, are your two goals linked together when, if someone else was responding to that. And it's just going to give them some structure for it. Or would you add or suggest changes in their plan to achieve their goals? To give them an idea of how to respond to others, which is really a helpful thing because sometimes students don't know like how they should be responding to each other. So that's my discussion prompt setup. Some cool things with Parlay is that I can turn anonymity on or off, however you want to say that word. So I can let students' names be revealed, or I can keep them anonymous. It picks out kind of cool names. I've already responded to this prompt, but it does pick out cool names for them. And then I can also, and this is where the assessment piece comes in, I can also have some assessments here. So I can have my criteria scale set to a 4. They have some already pre-written criteria for assessment, like the ones you can see here. Is it creative? Is it focused? Is it using evidence? And you can also create your own assessment points. So if you have a rubric that you use for discussion already, you can upload that into here, and you can use the same criteria that you normally would to assess students on their responses and their replies to each other. Another cool piece here is I can use this peer feedback questions to help structure the way that students are going to respond to each other. So this is where I'm talking about this can really improve your discussions because it's going to give students a way to know how they should be responding to each other. And you can either have some preloaded ones that you have in here, maybe like this. This reminds me of blank, and then the students would fill in what they think. Or they could have, I believe blank could be improved by blank. And this is actually one that pertains to the discussion that we're using today, which is where students are going to suggest one of the most important or influential or interesting sustainable development goals, and they're going to try to build on that for other students. So that's one that I could use so that when students try to reply, they see that. Or maybe I would build on your idea about blank. That'd be something that would really apply to this discussion. Or they could have something that was interesting. Your point about blank was interesting because blank, and let's go with this one right here. How is this similar or different to your opinion? So just giving the kids some options on how they want to respond to this. And so when they go to respond to each other, they're going to see that discussion prompt. So just to show you what this looks like from the student's perspective, I'm actually going to log out. I'm going to log in with a different Google account so you can see what it looks like both to respond and to see. So when a student logs into this, they're going to see my discussion prompt. They're going to have the content with the video. They're going to have the link to the website that's going to take them to the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. And they're going to have the instructions for the different questions that they are going to be answering. And they're going to have the guidelines for the peer feedback, just like I pasted in there. So I have a student, myself, that responded to this prompt saying that one of the most important SDG is partnerships, because it's through the partnerships that we have with other nations that will be able to accomplish the other SDGs. And then they would go on from there. But so if I was responding to this other student, right, as a student responding to a student, I can see that I'm going to leave a comment here, and maybe I have a requirement in class, like you have to comment on 2 people in the class's post. And so I have these sentence starters, or these sentence stems, whatever you want to call it, to help me with my response. So not only does that get me started on it, but it also helps me as a teacher structure the discussion that they're having and help them to work on specific skills. So like if we're working on evidence in science, I could have all sentence structures talking about evidence. So that's what they're focusing on in their discussion. Or if I'm trying to have them focus on claims, like that's the skill we're building, then we can put sentence structures in here talking about claims and how claims are being supported, or whatever it is. So you can really focus in on the skills that you want them to be thinking about. So I can paste that in here, and you can fill in the blank, and then they'll send it, and it'll comment with my anonymous name. They won't know who responded to it. They'll know that Heinrich Hertz responded to it, but they know that there's no way that he could have responded to that. So yeah, that's the response portion of this. So it really does structure students' discussions in that sense. So going back to the teachers, and students can see this next part on their own, but just to show you how another way of how this can really build better discussions. When I go to this round table that we have here, I can see the summary of the discussion. So I can see that both of the students in here submitted a response, 100%. I can see that 50% gave at least one comment and 50% received a comment. Now, if we were breaking this down and kind of doing a debrief on the discussion at the end of class, we might have some reflection questions that we want to talk about. So this is a question that I could pose to the kids. So we are discussing about our discussion, and from there we can build ideas of what a good discussion is. Hopefully, if you started doing something this at the start of the year, then by the end of the year you would have really productive discussions. And so it gives me some suggestions on questions that I can ask the students, that could prompt their thinking about discussion. Is it important for everyone to comment? Why or why not? Well, there we go. We're going to have a discussion about that. As we go down, we can see how many words the comments were. So on average, we used 8 words per comment. And, we can talk about why does that matter? And how can we improve in our next online roundtable? Another really cool feature of this is that it will take all of the submissions and it will build a word cloud based off of the common words that came in here. So maybe in science, if we were explaining, a topic and we were just introducing something, I'd have the students just, what do you know about this, right? So they're typing in all the different words that they know pertaining to some sort of phenomenon that they see. And then we could pull out the commonalities in here. Or maybe you were in social studies and you say, what words do you know that remind you of World War II? Or what words do you think of when you hear World War II? And they could type in their responses to that, and you would get a word cloud, and you'd be able to pull some information out of there, like, oh, that's interesting why so many people think this. Let's dive into that. And then so you can build your discussions that way. I could also go through and I could star model submissions. So if I saw someone's response to the discussion that was, kind of like an exemplar, like this is a really good response. I could star it, and then it would pop up in the summary, and students would be able to see that on their screens, and we could talk about it after the discussion. We could talk about the comments per discussion. And then another piece of this, and this part doesn't look very good because of how few people that were in the discussion. But what this would do is kind of like a diagram for how the discussion went. So it would, in a sense, we have one person right here on this side of the circle, and we would have another person on this side, and we'd have someone else on this side, and we'd have someone else on this side. And what Parlay would do is it would draw every time there was a comment or response from this person over to this person, it would draw a line connecting those two people. The more comments back and forth they had, the thicker the line would get, right? And if this person right here, let's say right here, this person responded to 5 different people, there'd be 5 lines leaving this spot on the circle, right here, right here, right here, and right here, and right there, and we'd be able to see how many people did they respond to. So we'd be able to identify things like common threads throughout the discussion. Is one person doing all of the responding, or is there a lot of really back and forth between 2 people going on? Maybe if we just have lines crossing over and over, but they're really thick, we know that the same 2 people are responding back and forth to each other, and vice versa with another group of students. And so it really can give a sense of putting a visual on this discussion, showing what does the discussion really look like, and giving you a starting place for improving your discussions. And so, like I said with Parlay, that's just kind of a really quick introduction. They have a lot of other features. I'd encourage you to go onto the resources tab. One thing with Parlay, we should really go through the thing that everybody is wondering for. How much does it cost? So Parlay is not a free tool, 100%. It does cost. So this is one where if you're a teacher who runs a lot of discussions in class, I mean, you have to make up your own mind for yourself. I believe this is a really, really powerful tool as far as discussions go. For a teacher trial for 12 roundtables, if you want to just try it out, you have no time limit to use your 12 roundtables. It is free for that. If you were going to extend past that and be able to use unlimited roundtables with unlimited students, it'd be $160 per year for an individual teacher, which depending on how often you would use discussions, it could be something that you're maybe interested in using. And then they also have 5 teacher pack and site district license, depending on what your district is thinking. So like I said, Parlay has a lot of features that can help you to improve your discussions, whether it's through students being able to structure their responses to each other, whether it's being able to put the discussion prompts right in next to their posts, and to be able to link in videos and content right through there, and also being able to give them some asynchronous flexibility while they're making their discussions. And so I really think it's a tool that could help out with discussions and improving the quality of your discussions throughout your class, whether it's in person or from a distance learning hybrid model. So the last tool that I have for you is called Pear Deck, and this is the one I was talking about where if you have proven slides that you know are good and you want to use those and actually ramp them up and make them more engaging for everybody and make sure that you're reaching every student, then this is the tool for you to use. You can add formative assessment throughout your existing slides. The way that you're going to use Pear Deck is you're going to go up to Google Add-ons and Google Slides. Now I already have this add-on, but I would go to Get Add-ons, and I would go to Pear Deck for Google. I'd click here, and I would go to right here, it would say Install if I was adding on to Pear Deck for Google. Another really good option, kind of similar if your school does Nearpod, is the Nearpod for Google Slides. The reason I chose to do Pear Deck for this is because I thought it changed the way your Google Slides were presenting a little bit less than Nearpod did, but they're both kind of the same idea, both really good apps. So once you get that app installed in your add-on, you can open the Pear Deck add-on by going to Pear Deck for Google Slides add-on, go to this one right here. And then what it's going to do is it's going to pop up this little sidebar that's going to give you some questions that you can add to your slides. So the first, as you can see, you can change either text questions, multiple choice questions, numbers, websites. You can add a lot of different things in here. So let's say I have my slide deck. This is the same thing I was using for this whole presentation. And the question now I want to ask students is, what do you need? And really you have to have the question on your Google slide before you can add in multiple choice options. But I can add in, I need, let's say, I swear I did not put that in there before this. I need some time to think, or maybe I do need a drink, or I need let's say I need some people to talk to. And so when this pops up, I want to get some information from my class, right? I want to know, what do you need? And so well, hopefully they don't choose this one, but I have some different options for them, and I'm going to be able to pull them really quickly using this. So that's going to add a multiple choice question to my existing slide. Another option that I can do is if I want to ask, how are you feeling today? I can use the draggable, and this is only one small way to use the draggable. It's basically giving you a sliding scale. So I can put some sort of an icon onto my slides, and the students are going to be able to drag it wherever they want to on this slide. So if they're feeling great, then they're going to drag it down to this side, and if they don't feel so good, then they would drag it here. I can also change the size of it that way. So now I'm just updating my slide, giving them a way to interact with that slide. And the next one that I wanted to show was talking about drawing. So I can add a drawing to this. You could use this a lot of different ways, same thing. I'm just going to use it in a very simple way. Adding on the ability to draw on this picture of the United States. Right? Maybe we're going over the states and I want them to just quickly quiz them on where is Nevada. And so once I have my slides updated, I can go to Start Lesson. And one of the cool things about Pear Deck is that it's either going to allow you to have a student-paced activity where they can work through it on their own, and it'll give you a link that they can go to, or you can do an instructor-paced activity where, you know, this would be as if you're standing in the front of the room giving your traditional lecture, and all of your students have their Chromebooks or iPads in front of them, or even their phone, they can use it. They would just go to joinpd.com, and then they would type in the class code. And so I'm going to do this to show you what it looks like from the student's side and the teacher's side. So if I go to pd.com, I just enter in this code. It's really easy to get to. I said they can do it on their phones. It's going to initially ask how they're feeling today, which I'm going to ask them later. And then as a teacher, I can start the class once my students are in. Now let's move this out of the way. So it's going to start from the beginning. It's the same slide deck that I was just editing. As a teacher, I can move them through, and my students would have the slides up right in front of them on whatever device they were using. So I have all of these slides. I can flip through and change with them. And then when I get to a question, this is the one where I edit it and ask, what do you need with a multiple choice question? And they can answer the question. And so maybe they need some time to think. And so they'd answer there. And as a teacher, I would be able to quick flip over from the presentation, and I'd be able to quickly see what my students are thinking. And so a couple different ways that you could use this. If I was a teacher, I could freeze my screen on here so that I could flip back and forth. You as a teacher could also have this set up on an iPad, so you're presenting from the iPad, so you can flip back and forth. And you could also have your computer logged in as a student presenting, so that you had the student's version up top, and you could have your iPad floating around, and you could check students' responses depending on what your technology needs are, or what you have available for you. Flip back there. I could also lock student screen, so once they've responded, I can lock their screen so that they can't change their mind once we've gone through the answer. And that's going to give me some options with getting some formative assessment throughout my slides. And I can also go to the next one and just show what the draggable looks like. So students could drag this over here. Maybe they're not feeling very good today. And as a teacher, I can click this button and I can see, basically, if I had 20 students on here, I'd see 20 flags all over this slide, and I'd get a very quick sense of how my class is feeling. I could also go to our draggable one, and I could, as a student, put a dot on Nevada, right? Or I could also type, so there's a lot of different ways you could use this. I could say, I don't know. I don't really have any idea of what's going on right now. And students could put that anywhere that they wanted to. And then as a teacher, same thing. I could quickly see what my class is. So I have a bunch of red dots right here. I know I'm on the right pace. If I have dots all over the place, I know that I need to go back and review this information. As a teacher, if all of a sudden I have something that I want to check on, I can quickly add a question to. Let's say I want to write a response. So I'm going to put this up and I'm going to ask the students a question. Right? So maybe I'm saying, what is the significance of Nevada in the United States? And they're going to answer the question, and they're going to type out their answers like, I think Nevada because, and then they're going to, they can click back and forth. And as a teacher, I can quickly see one of my students has said, I think Nevada is important because, and I can actually show that on my screen to show that to other students so that we can talk about that answer. And so that's going to really give you an idea of what Pear Deck can do for your class, whether it's through live instruction or whether it's through a hybrid model. Maybe you want to set it up so students can work through things at their own pace. But that's really going to be the general gist of Pear Deck. It's going to allow you to take your proven slides that work very well, but you don't always get engagement from all of your students. And you're going to be able to add questions into the slides so that while you're presenting, you can get an idea of how your students are feeling on this, and you can quickly change the way that you're teaching to address the needs of your students in that moment. So if you've gotten to this point in the session, you've been able to ask yourself two questions. Number one, which of these tools is going to make my teaching more effective? And number two, which of these tools is going to solve a problem for me that I couldn't solve before? And so the last question you need to ask yourself is, what next? At the start of the session, I said you need to pick one tool, one situation, or one problem that you're going to work on and try to solve that and to use it in your classroom. And so I put together some resources. And really what this is it's some YouTube videos that are going to give you a full walkthrough on each of these tools, right? Whether it's Edpuzzle, Eduflow, Flipgrid, Parlay, or Pear Deck. And by the time you get done watching this video, you should feel pretty comfortable about being able to use one of these tools in your classroom. And what I'd encourage you to do at that point is to sit down, go through your first unit, and figure out what instances am I going to use this tool in, right? What situations am I going to use this in? And then commit to using it for a full unit. And if it doesn't work, then go and find another tool that can solve that problem for you or help you out in that situation. Because you never know, it could just be one small little tool that can make all the difference in your classroom. I want to thank you guys for watching this session. My name is Justin Viss. Again, if there's anything that was unclear or that I could help clarify for you, or that I could help you out, or if you had a question that I didn't answer, please reach out. You can get a hold of me at email with jviss@isd2149.org. I'm a science teacher at Minnewaska. I teach 9th grade through 12th grade science, specifically 9th grade. If you guys want to connect on Twitter, I'd love to see some of the things that you guys are doing in your classroom, because I have so much to learn about this topic and how to get better in general. So again, I hope you found something really useful in this session. I hope that you're able to come away with one tool that you could use, and I hope that you have a great year and you're able to adapt to any situation that you find yourself in this year. I hope you stay in touch. Thank you.